All right, Parashat Nasso. Parashat Nasso. Before we start, I just want to remind everybody not to forget to press the like and subscribe because it helps us a lot. And don't forget to share. So Parashat Nasso, the question comes on Parashat Nasso when we read the parasha, this weekly portion. There's 176 verses in this portion. And when you look at the content of that, you see that this length is not necessarily because of many subjects, many topics that are brought in, but rather from what it seems like an endless repetition on one particular topic, and that is the korbanot of the Nesiim, the sacrifice or the offering in which the head of the tribes, the presidents, the heads of the tribes brought. I mean, and over and over and over again. I mean, look at this way. Imagine you are sitting in a class, and you hear the lecturer, the professor, repeating 12 different times on the same matter without any change besides, a minor thing, which else is the names of them, of course, right? Of course, most of us are not going to understand what's the reason for that, and most likely, what happens to most of us, we're going to fall asleep. However, here we're not necessarily talking about a one-time lecture or one-time lesson. Hello, Moshe, how you doing? Take some chulit. But rather, we are talking about eternal Torah, eternal knowledge. So why do we need to have that repetition? So in the world of pure common sense, just a simple common sense, or some kind of let's say, educational efficiency, right? It would seem that it would have been appropriate to write the korban, the offering of the first president, and then to say, and this is what all the other presidents brought. I mean, right? That it will make more sense. Why do you have to repeat the same thing over and over and over again? And of course, the question is, it's a very deep question. Why the Torah that dedicated? I mean, our Torah is eternal. Torah Netzach is dedicated, is eternal. Why did the Torah dedicated so much, and especially since in the Torah every word is precise, and every letter there is endless wisdom. Why this letter is here or it's not here? Why did the Torah dedicate so many verses to this topic? And this question becomes even more intense when we remember, if you look at the Gemara in Pesachim, teaches how the rabbi should teach those who teach Torah. And the Gemara says, Le'olam yishne adam letalmido b'derech tzara. Always teach your children, teach your students in the shortest possible way. Don't complicate things for them. However, in another place, we have a medrash over there, Rabbi Akiva, that sits down and learns halachot from every little naval, a crown of the Torah, every little nick in the Torah on a letter. I mean, so what's the difference? Like, what's going on here? Either I should make it super short, or I should make it super long, but you're confusing me. The Midrash opens up a tremendous opening for us to understand those matters. The Midrash says, Bo re'eh, come and see. He'ach hakol yotzeh etzel kol Yisrael. How does the voice comes out by each one of us as Jews? Kol echad ve'echad lefi kocho. Each one to his ability. And it says, Haskenim lefi kochan. The elders according to their ability. The young lads according to their ability. The children according to their ability. The infants according to their ability. Women according to their ability. Even Moshe Rabbeinu according to his ability. As it says, and it brings us the famous verse from Tehillim. Which one?
Kuf Yud
29. Right? It says, Kol Hashem Bekoach. Now it says the voice of Hashem with koach, with force, or with ability. However, it doesn't say bekocho, kol Hashem bekocho, by his force or with his ability. Therefore, the Midrash is doresh kol echad ve'echad, each and every one, according to his ability. That's in Shmot Rabbah. It brings it over there. The Midrash really gives us an answer that is not actually technical, but if you look at it, it's cosmic. It is unbelievable. The voice that comes out, or the way, the reflection of the Torah in each and every one of us, right? Each according to his own personal ability, and that is a principle. Is one of the deepest principles in Jewish mysticism. The Torah is not a text. The Torah is not a text, but rather a spiritual reflection of the person who reads it. The Torah, in a way, is a spiritual mirror that reflects on you who and what you are, what state of your life you are. That's why you could have so many different, explanation. It's not that it's a machloket. It's not that it's a contradiction. Each mefarish, each commentator see things according to his personality and who he is, and that's how it is. That's why we say, and we accept it, and we encourage that. That's why we say, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chaim. These are the words of the living God. Because this is how the word of God reflects inside of him. I'm not talking about making a new Torah. Of course, we're all bound by halacha. Halacha is the boundaries, but how do we actually see it? And what we choose to see it is a reflection of who we are as people and who we are in terms of a persona. And when a soul hears a word of Torah, the neshama does not hear the sounds, but rather hears itself in the divine light. In other words, as we say in Matan Torah, they heard the sight, right? Shamu et hakolot. They would see the sight, but they would hear it. In other words, it reflected in each and every one of them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks, however, it echoes. The voice of God, the voice of the Torah echoes in each and every one of us according to his capacity, according to his shoresh neshama, the root of his soul, and according to his personal tikkun, whatever he needs to fix. That's what he hears. And that's why we have also the voice, that we have the heavenly voice that comes out every day from Har Choreh, from Har Sinai. It's like, guys, learn Torah, learn Torah, learn Torah, learn Torah. Each one hears it. Some people put their hands in their ears, but the voice is really echoing inside each and every one of us. That's why the Torah repeats and repeats and repeats it again. The type of the korbanot, or the offering of the Nesiim, each and every one. Not because the Torah changes, but because what? Because we change. Because we change. Each Nasi, even though he brought the same korban, the same offering as the other one, had a different kavanah in it and in a different reflection in it. Maybe the offering was equal in terms of the physical aspect of it, right? But the shoresh of the kavanah, the root of the intent, and the spiritual trajectory of which it came from is completely different. And we need to understand that. And this is like what I'm trying to tell you now. It is a tremendous secret that if you just take it and reflect it, I think you'll be able to see things and people in a totally different light. Now, the Ramban already hinted to that, and it says, Nachshon chashav ta'am echad, v'zulato chashav bo ta'am b'fnei atzmo. Right? This one thinks one thing, and somebody else thinks another thing. In a way, the Torah is operating like a Montessori school. You know, where they don't take all the kids together like sardine can. They teach everybody I mean, if you think about it, not much has changed in education since the single room schoolhouse when you had people who were 6 years old and 18-year-olds or whatever, you know, they all grouped together in, like, you know, this one room school. Not much has changed. We just separate into age, but everybody has to learn the same thing in the same way. In Montessori schools, it's different. If a kid is, for example, is more drawn to art, so then let him do it. Let him learn. And that's a very Torah-oriented way of looking at education. And we as parents many times sin to our children when we direct our kids on jobs or professions or interests that are going to be profitable. In other words, how much money is making, not if the person likes it or not. Sometimes we, in a way, brainwash our kids to go to certain jobs that will give us more money, to the point that the kid later on grows up and he really hates himself and everything that he does. He doesn't understand why. The reason is because he got never connected with what he really wants. In other words, we did not allow the voice to echo inside of him and then resonate outside. We coated everything inside with styrofoam on the outside as well, with insulation, and therefore no voice comes in, no voice comes out. And then you have a person who is completely angry and completely feels not connected and completely miserable. And that's basically what we have in today's day and age, Rabotai. What I'm trying to tell you here, if you're just going to implement it to your life, guys, it's going to change your lives. You need to be brave enough to do that. And truthful enough to do it. But better, and if you tell me it's too late, I'm going to tell you better late than never. So, we know that the Torah, we all receive the Torah, right? Those who are here presently today, those who lived in the past, and even those who would live in the future, we all receive the Torah. In other words, in a form, if it wasn't an actual physical form, excuse me, it was in a form of all the souls, all the potential, all the roots of the souls, all the branches of the souls were in Har Sinai, they were there. So we all received the Torah under the mountain and received it. That's why Chazal tells us that each and every one of us, as the Chazal says, Mushba ve'omed mi'ar Sinai. The covenant in which took place in Sinai did not happen just with the people there, it happened with each and every one of us. Some of us have longer journeys, some of them have shorter journeys. By the way, this is why we say, did you ever wonder why in Tefillah, when we pray, we start Elokeinu ve'Elokei Avotenu, our God and our Father's God. It should really be, out of respect, our Father's God and then our God. What do you mean our God and our Father's God? Do you ever think about it? So Rav Rechamim Falachi says the following. He says there are two different levels in a person who's Shomer Torah mitzvah. A person that does it because his parents did it, right? And out of respect to his parents, he says, what do you mean? That's what my parents did, that's what I do, no questions asked. However, he says the disadvantage of that is, sit over there. The disadvantage of that is that it's done what they call B'chinat Mitzvat Anashim Melumadat. They do it like robots without thinking much. So that's the downside of it. The upside of it is that, that's what my parents did. I'm not thinking of anything else. The other type of people that observe the mitzvot are the people who go and investigate and the research and the check and so on and so forth. And that could be, even if a person was born religious or Baal Tshuva or even a convert. Out of research, he realized that this is what it is, and he checked. And that's a tremendous level. He says this is a higher level of the one who was born and does it automatically. However, the downside of it, if somebody would come and will give him proofs, he might actually get off the derech. Somebody on Chag, on the second day of Chag, told me there was a guy in a certain yeshiva that was a Baal Tshuva, but he decided to become a Baal Tshuva because he investigated everything. He said it didn't make sense to him. He kept the mitzvot, he hated the Torah. He didn't like Judaism, but he said because there's no other way to live. He didn't like it. Eventually, after many years, he actually started to like it. But he just makes sense. That's the right way to go. Every time somebody would come in argument, he would think about it, and then he would come back again. Well, he said, no, it doesn't make sense. That's why I'm going to continue staying. It's a terrible way to live life, but nevertheless, there are people like this. However, Rav Palachi says, Rav Rachamim Palachi, the son of Rav Palachi, says the following. We says Elokeinu ve'Elokei Avotenu because this is a higher level. But we coming to HaKadosh Baruch Hu from both angles. Yes, we checked and we investigated everything, and yet we also do it because our fathers did it. So in the merit of both of them, we actually come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Elokeinu ve'Elokei Avotenu. So when we receive the Torah, not only us, not only our forefathers, even those who are not here, were there in terms of the covenant, of receiving that covenant. And each and every one of us heard in a tremendous preciseness the content of what was given in Sinai. And we heard the same thing that God spoke to us from the fire itself. They say on the Chafetz Chaim, there's a story about the Chafetz Chaim, that when he started the Zman in the Yeshiva, he would repeat the same things over and over and over again. He never changed. He gave one speech, and every year he gave the same thing. So the students always ask, he says, excuse me, dear Chafetz Chaim, why don't you change something? Are you saying the things over and over again? Why this repetition? They said, we understand if new students, would have come and they didn't hear it. But many Talmidim in the Yeshiva stayed for years, and they still hear it. Why not to make something new? The answer of the Chafetz Chaim was very simple, but yet very deep. He says the following: yes, correct. It is true that what I'm saying are the same thing. But the Bachurim that come back to Yeshiva, they are also new. Whether it's in their body, where we are talking about new Talmidim that come to the Yeshiva, and also in their soul, those who are older. You're not the same person you were yesterday. So we need people change, and while people change, they can hear things differently as well. The Kabbalah teaches us that one physical act, for example, giving tzedakah or lighting a candle, could be with a tremendous result. The result of that could be completely different according to the shoresh of the neshama and the internal kavanah of the person. Every person has his own path in the sferot, in the Etz Chaim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is the path in which he could continue, and actually that's the light that draws him to go into. That's the beacon that guides you, that pulls you through it. Right? Some, as we just finished in Texan, as we finish in Sfirat HaOmer, right? Every day was different. One time was Keter Shebeyesod, sometimes Chesed Shebechesed, one time Gvura Shebehod, and so on and so forth, right? All these variations, right? Each one is different. That's why two people who learned the Torah, the same Torah, could come up with tremendous variations, and yet also will make the tikkun in the other worlds completely different. I'm going to tell you something. If you want to know, especially David, listen to me very carefully. Listen carefully. If you want to know why you should disconnect, you too, Mr. Abner. If you want to know why you should disconnect from your telephones and from your social media, especially when you hear, it's not just because your fingers might get broken, but it's because of different reasons. Because it's an insult to your intelligence. Do you want to know why? Because if I am teaching you the same thing over and over again, I hear by making a statement that I acknowledge the fact that you are not the same person as you were yesterday. You improved, you changed, you are different. When we have all these platforms of whatever it is, and you know what? This disease, in a way, also infiltrated the world of Torah. Everything is new. I need to give you new excitement every single day because I figured that you are the same person. So in order to keep you going, I need to make sure that you get new incentives every single moment. That's why you look at check at this one. This update is this. I mean, it's an insult to intelligence. You tell me that I'm not changing. You tell me that I'm not capable of changing. That's why you need to come up with new ideas and new concepts all the time, and new flippings and new whatever it is over there, and posting and so on and so forth. It's an insult to your intelligence. You need to think about this. You see today, I mean, you have, I was telling you, it was crazy. In one place in Israel, in one shul in Israel, they brought this Arab to give them a lecture on organ donors. It was just like crazy. Why? Because you need to make an excitement. Instead of sitting down on Erev Shavuot, on late Shavuot, and to sit down and learn Gemara or learn Mishnayot to do the whole thing, it became a whole masquerade. You bring in rabbis that they're going to crack a little bit of jokes, and it's going to be this program and that. I mean, what do you think you are, on a cruise, for crying out loud? What is this? You're not in the mountains in the Catskills that you need to have entertainment. I assume that you're changing every single day. That is, again, it is an insult to your intelligence of who you are as a human being. Right, David?
Yes.
Can I have your phone? So now, also in the korbanot of the Nesiim, of the presidents, even though in our world it looked like they were the same, but not in the spiritual world. Each different Nasi had a different tikkun on the shoresh, the spiritual root of his own tribe. Every tribe had to fix something. That's why everybody brought it. That was their intent. And those Nesiim were called upon by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, call this one and call this one. He's going to be the Nasi, he's going to be the Nasi. Because that was the only person who was capable to do that. And they all brought it. Yet it looked to us the same thing, but everything was changing differently. Chazal tells us, for example, on Rabbi Eliezer, that he never said a Dvar Torah that he did not hear from his Rebbe. Never. However, on the other hand, he would have chidushim that nobody ever heard before. So, I mean, how is this possible? Either you say everything from your Rebbe, or it's only chidushim, only your own things. How is this possible? So the answer for that is really rooted in a deep understanding. Each one of Am Yisrael, any person who learns the Torah, has a special koach, power, ability in it. He has a special voice, a personal voice that speaks to him from above the parochet, just like Moshe Rabbeinu will go to the Ark of Covenant and he would speak. Each and every one of us has this voice that he hears, or this spiritual power that comes in and tells him, this is how you're going to fulfill the commandment, or the idea of Bishvili Nivra Olam. For me, the word was created. In other words, you need to do in Tikkun Olam. In other words, this is the path on which you should go. And that's why you need to hear this voice echoing inside of you. Guys, Avner, can I have your phone? Can I have your phones, please? So now, if you don't hear those voices, if you don't hear this voice, if you don't know where to go, what to do, there's something wrong with you. You need to completely cleanse yourself. You need to go on a cleansing spiritual diet of complete disconnect from all that stuff. You need to start feeling proud of who you are and really connect with really who you are, not who everybody else created you to be. In other words, you are spiritually impaired. And if a person is impaired, he will go to seek help. Why don't we seek spiritual help? Why don't we seek spiritual help? Why we continue with this craziness all the time? And that's something that you can answer. Only you can answer. In the Zohar says, Oraita v'kedusha brichu v'Yisrael chadhu. The Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Am Yisrael is one entity. The Torah is an internal revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and also shows us the internal structure of our soul. However, how each and every one of us could reach that on his own path and from his own place. How each and every one of us could express himself into the Torah. That's why we need to make sure that you're late. That will cost you about 20 push-ups. So each and every one of us need to come to actually see that, and how does it reflect to him, to find yourself into that. That's why some person is only drawn to halacha, and a person is drawn to Gemara, and this one is drawn to... You need to learn everything, but your inclination is to go to that, and that's okay. However, in a mass production of students, there's no room for that. That's why I think, and everybody wants to have a yeshiva with 2,000 students or 500 students, because it's very nice. I mean, it's big for the ego. But the real work cannot be done on such a large scale. Cannot. I hear people in Kollel that what they do is just simply sit down all day long and they just learn without anybody guiding them. Just sit down. And I said to somebody, what do you mean? You tell me you sit in Kollel and all you do is just learn Gemara by yourself? How are you going to learn? Who's going to teach you? Nobody gives you shiur. And the answer was no. And I was like shocked. Shocked. We need to give the head to that as well. We need to give our thoughts about where are we sending our kids to school, and what do we demand from the school as well. Unfortunately, most of us don't demand from the schools anything. We want the schools to do babysitting for our kids, not to provide proper education for our kids. We want our kids to be just like anybody else. But your kid is not just like anybody else. He's a unique entity. We cannot we cannot demand our kids to be just like anybody else. That's a failure in parenting. That's a failure in education. You know, you have to, if you go to a special education, CSE or whatever it is first of all, they check if you met, you know, if a kid is in special, if you met the specific needs of that particular kid. But I hate the term special education, because every kid should have special education. Not just those with disability. We all specially educate. We're all special. And that's why I said to you before that, you know, you being drawn in by giving you a lot of like new this and new that, and that's, as I said to you before, that's an insult to your intelligence. Again, not thinking that you're able to change, not accepting the fact that you have the ability to change. Take it easy over there, leave some for others. And also not willing to accommodate everybody differently. It takes a lot of work. You got to take yourself out of this equation. So now, and that's why it says to us that, you know, we need to understand that repetition, that's something that we don't do enough. Chazara, repetition, when we learn, is not just a educational instrument or technique, but rather it's a mystical movement where the divine light is broken and then concentrated through the individual prism of each and every one of us. You need to repeat what you learned all the time. That's why every time we start, I said, okay, recap on what we started yesterday, where we stopped yesterday. You have to do chazara. It's not just about finishing the whole shas. Yes, you should finish, but you should also go back to learn what you did before. Oh, I already did this, Rabbi. Okay, when did we do it? We did this about, I don't remember, what, 20 years ago? So 20 years ago, you didn't go back to this Masechta? It doesn't make sense. That's not considered to be learning. I'm telling you, there are certain tractors in the Gemara. I don't know how many times I learned them, 10, 12 times, I don't know anymore. Every single time I come to it as if I never learned it before, and every single time I find something new in it. Why should I go so far? On the Parashat Shavua every single week. I mean, I've been doing this, I'm 63 years old, going to be this year, Be'ezrat Hashem. I've been doing it for quite a while, let's put it this way, right? over and over and over again. And if you add the Shnai Mikra Echad Targum and whatever it is that you do, and this Pirush or that Pirush, you end up doing the parasha, thousands of times. Every single time I find something new that I say, oh my goodness, how come I didn't see it beforehand? I never get bored of it. Because I understand that I change. And that's why doing a repetition, going again, is not, it's not something that it's not needed. On the contrary, it is needed and is demanded to. You need to go back and review. And why? Because it allows each and every voice of us and any kind of variation of who we are and a variation of an intent to get a spiritual uniqueness. And that needs to come to light. In Masechet Avodah Zarah, we bring the words of Rav. En Adam lomed ela mimakom shelibo chafetz. A person only can learn from where he wants to learn. The Torah, we all hear from one mouth, whether it's your Rebbe or whether it's Moshe Rabbeinu, we all hear it, right? And ultimately, we all hear it from one place, from one source, which is God, right? We hear it from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But to the heart, only things that are associated with what you need to fix are actually going to get your heart moving. But the problem is, you need to remember that you have a heart and you need to reveal it. You need to get in touch with your heart. And again, this is all based on what you need to fix. This is also why every Nasi brought the same exact things as the other one. But as we said, each one, the intent was different because there was a different reason to do so, a different goal to reach. And as we brought to the Rambam. However, in the Sforno it says, Kol echad mehem kiven lechaper al pirtei chataim shebeshivto. Each one of them had every tribe has his own, skeletons. So that was the reason. So if the Ramban spoke about Nachshon, the Sforno says it's to the tikkun of each and every one. Guys, each and every one of us has his own unique divine voice that is designated to his own frequency. That is a voice that comes to him, but it comes through you only when you have people around you. That's why you need to learn with the chavruta. That's why you need to sit in a shiur to learn. As the Chafetz Chaim understood, right? Every time a person hears something, he's different. You need also. Sometimes your chavruta is your echo, is the mirror that helps you fix yourself when you enter the pathways, and that's a very important thing. So if you think that you're going to sit then by yourself and you're going to learn and you're doing something, you are wrong. You are wrong. The Torah teaches us, as I said to you before, that repetition and going over things again is an expression for a spiritual depth of each and every one of us, of a unique voice that each and every one of us has. And every time we turn towards the Torah, we reveal something new in it, something personal in it. And that's why the Torah is not afraid of repeating something 12 times. Because the Torah knows that every single time somebody else's listens. So, if we were the presidents themselves, of course, that was very clear to us, right? Because they came with a true kavanah of they knew what needs to be fixed. And even if we were a part of the tribes, we would understand what our president is actually bringing and why he's bringing it to fix it. Because we know what's wrong. It's like, at the end of the day, we all know what we need to fix. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, but we all know what needs to be fixed. But we live in a world today that there are no defined tribes anymore. They're all mixed up. We don't have the presidents or the leaders that will bring an offering on behalf of the people. But each and every one of us is a small president, a small leader of the tribe of his own soul. of his own personality. When we open the Sefer Torah, it's not, as I said to you before, it's not a text. It's not something you sit down and you learn. Shakespeare is a text. Aristotle works as a text. Torah is not. It's a divine voice that tells us this is how you're going to find your way. This is how you're going to define who you are. This is how you're going to find who you are. And this is how you're going to fix your share in the world. Even if the Torah that you hear, it seems like you already learned, but it would sound different to you because you are not the same person. You are not the same person. I mean, here I give you an example, right? We were all the same. Well, some of you were not even born. But after September 11, we're not the same people. As a nation, after October 7th, we are not the same people. As individuals, and as a nation. Every single day, though, but it's not just those events. Every single day, you need to acknowledge and accept the fact that you are different. If not, you have to worry. And as the Chafetz Chaim says, the students change. That's why we're repeating those things over and over again. So after so many years, without a leader and without tribes, we will need to find our unique voice in our parasha. Parashat Nasso is not just a historical document of what and who brought when and how, but rather it's a gate to a deep understanding, spiritual understanding, that each and every one of us has the frequency in which he gets the words of Hashem, and the Torah does not speak, it's not a historical document, but it's something that it's talking to each and every one of us, and every soul, every spirit, every person in his unique voice. And that repeating and doing things over is not boredom, but rather an invitation to meet yourself again, to introduce yourself to yourself again. And an interesting exercise that you guys could do is to interview yourself. Imagine you're sitting down, I'm sure you all saw clips of this, 60 Minutes, right? So the guy goes, he sits down like this, it's a nice light. So why don't you just sit down with yourself one time and interview yourself? Put up the show, take a nice shower, put something comfortable. It's about time to take a shower, right? Put some nice light on, soft light on, take a piece of paper, and then write the questions that you would ask a person of great importance in order to know them. And ask yourself those questions and try to answer those questions honestly. If you're honest enough, you would see, you'll find out a lot of things on yourself that you probably try to hide behind the carpet, under the carpet all the time. Introduce yourself to yourself. And that's something that, believe me, most of us are afraid of doing. What you want and what you are and what you're about. Not the image that you put on. Not the image. The true person that you are. You might put an image that you have this bravado, that you're this big guy who does this and does that. But just the matter is, you're not. You're actually a coward. Well, if you want to do something about it, do something about it, but at least you know who you are. It reminds me, it's a totally different thing. It reminds me, and I'm not here advocating for everybody to do that, but it reminds me of those people who are, especially after the movies, there were a few movies in, I think the 80s or the 70s. I think it's called Hell Angels on Wheels, and the other one, of course, is a famous TV show, Sons of Anarchy, right? Mm-hmm. After that, everybody wants to be in a motorcycle club. So some people just, today you can go get patches from China and just put whatever you want on yourself. Put president, sergeant at arms, whatever you are, and you think you are a club. And people don't understand that the motorcycle people, those who are really in what they call the 1%ers, really get upset at that. And they see you, they'll know right away that you are fake, and they'll take it off. And the question is, what do you care? It's a free country. I'll do whatever I want. But they work very hard. Whether you like it or not like it, that's not the point. They work very hard to do that. If you want to be in a motorcycle, so go join one, don't make up one. They hate this fakeness that people have. You want to ride a bike, go ride a bike. But don't call yourself, and sometimes the people create just their own things out of the imagination that looks like, they want to look alike. We need to stop being lookalikes of really who we are. And the only way to really become who we are is to sit down and allow the voice of the Torah to vibrate inside of you, echo inside of you, break away all the husk, all the klipot, all the masquerade that you put on yourself. We're not in Venice in some kind of a street parade that everybody puts a mask on. You got to be able to sit there and look at yourself in the mirror and see the truth and fix it. It's like the guy who looks in the mirror, he's about, let's say 5'8", and he's like, 250. That's a pretty chunky guy, right? And he looks in the mirror and says, I'm a little overweight, this is pretty good. Tucked himself in, it looks good. It's amazing. In the mirror, you look great. But if somebody takes a picture of you, all of a sudden, oh my goodness, what is this thing? I swallowed the dinosaur. What is this? How is it? It's a bad angle on the camera. It's not a bad angle on the camera. You are fat. We need to stop using that mirror that tells us what we want to hear. Mirror, mirror on the wall, tell me who's the prettiest one of all. That's not going to work. We need to really get down to the bottom of who we are. And that could only be done if you seriously learn Torah appropriately from somebody to guide you. Allow the Torah. Stop with the game. Stop with the shows. Stop with the pretend. This is what this parasha is basically telling us. And this is why this parasha, which is the longest parasha, one of the greatest secrets of the Torah, is being revealed. In reality, there is never a repetition, because the divine light is different, and every single time it touches a different soul. So don't be afraid to do Chazara. Don't be afraid to learn Halachot Shabbat over and over again. Don't be afraid to go back to a Gemara that you just finished and start it again. You'll see that you find out things that you didn't see before. And more than that, it helps you also realize that each and every one of us is special, to respect and love every one of us. I'm going to tell you something about I was thinking about it today, about the great Rabbi Ben Chaim. So there's no doubt in his greatness of Torah that is beyond belief. But I was wondering, why? And I said, well, I think it is mainly because, well, first of all, he learned a lot. But also, a lot of people learned a lot, but nobody knows Torah like him. But it's because his ability to see uniqueness in every single person, to find the good spot in every single person, and to be truthfully moved by that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, you're able to see the true spark on everybody else. I'll give you the whole Torah, and this is basically what Rabbi Ben Chaim is basically Sar HaTorah. Hashem yivarech oto b'chaim shonim, b'chaim arukot b'shanim tovot. So, Rabotai, the same thing to you. Start appreciating everybody. Start seeing the good things about everybody. Allow the Torah to echo inside of you. And Be'ezrat Hashem, it's only going to be good for us. And as they say, Od yoter tov, ve'od yoter tov, ve'od yoter tov. Shabbat shalom.